Hello, everybody, for another fantastic session. You're in store for a treat. We have Reed Dickson and Josie Milliken who are going to be chatting about artificial intelligence and how to be inclusive. But before we get to their workshop today, I have just a couple housekeeping tips for everybody. First, if you would like to use the captions, all you have to do is use either the caption button at the bottom of the Zoom window, or sometimes they're hiding under the button that's marked More with the three dots. When you click that More button, a menu will pop up and you can choose captions from the menu. Next, these are interactive sessions. So we encourage you to use the chat to share your thoughts, to share your questions, and Reed and Josie will get to them as they can. I'll keep an eye on them if they fly by so fast that some get missed. And last but not least, because we're recording this, if you do not wish to be captured on camera, then just make sure to keep your cameras off. If you don't want your name to be captured, you're welcome to change your name in the Zoom settings. But I am grateful to have Reed and Josie here, and I'm going to hand the microphone over to them so they can have as much time as possible. But you have to turn yourself off mute once I hand that mic over.
The mic, I think, is now working. Kevin, thank you for the introduction. I'm honored here to be presenting with our dean, Dr. Josie Milliken, who is taking some time away from her busy schedule to walk through some of the ideas that we put together when building out a course on AI for teaching and learning. And we will, as we proceed, make this an interactive session. So please use the chat feed, pose questions. We'll be posing questions to you as we proceed as well. And Josie Milliken, if it's okay with you, I will go ahead and open up the introductory slide. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we get started?
I think we can go right ahead. Thank you, Reed.
Wonderful. All right, so our workshop, and I want to make sure everybody can see it, is titled Empowering Educators. Thumbs up, we can see the slide? Beautiful. So this is our Empowering Educators workshop. We're looking at how do we navigate AI for inclusive and engaged learning. I'm here with Dr. Josie Milliken, and my name is Reed Dickson. In terms of our agenda, I think Josie is going to take this slide away. You're unmuted.
So we're going to move through our introduction and start with a few guiding questions that informed a project that we work on, which is a faculty training. Also, staff were welcome as well to learn about teaching and learning with AI, and that is our LEAD 185 course. And then we will wind down into lessons learned and have about 10 minutes for some Q&A.
Wonderful. So let's do a little introduction here. Again, for our abstract that we submitted, our aim in this workshop is to outline the key elements for building a faculty development course that fosters collaboration in creating and sharing AI-powered teaching artifacts. We wanted to focus very much on practical strategies, things that faculty can use immediately as soon as they finish class or even during class with their students, in which they're integrating AI tools effectively, considering personalization, feedback, and assessment, all while keeping an eye towards how do we maintain student agency during a time of AI. We're going to shift towards guiding questions.
So how this came about, if we want to reel your minds back into December of 2022, we had a holiday potluck at our campus in Pima Community College. And Reed was very excited and sharing his cell phone everywhere and said, ChatGPT, OpenAI, OpenAI. And that is the first time that I remember hearing and also feeling the excitement of something of a landmark shift. And there was a lot of buzz about it. And that was the first time I typed it into a browser. And so following that time, throughout the winter and spring of 2023. We were all exploring it, and all of you here probably have your own stories, and you're welcome to put them in the chat of when you first heard about generative AI, expanding into how we're seeing and working with it now. And as we moved through towards this exact time last year, so May, towards the end of our spring semester at Pima Community College, we had this idea of what would it be like to offer a faculty training AI for teaching and learning that's created through AI, but not leaving it just like that, because we don't want to hand over an AI canned course, but to integrate the kind of metacognitive, reflective thinking that we would like for instructors to integrate into their own teaching, should they utilize AI, or should they encourage their students to utilize AI in some way. So the overarching goal was to find a way to emphasize responsible pedagogical practices through use of AI. And so here's a couple of questions here, but I think we can move forward to our next slide.
Wonderful. So one thing that we're sharing with you from the outside is just the importance of sharing our process throughout. And Josie, I think, remembers every time we would meet, we'd have ChatGPT pulled up, and every idea that we put into the class, we kept track of. We kept track of transcript links. And you can see here, even in our syllabus, we include a transparent AI practice note that says this syllabus was generated with the help of ChatGPT 4. To view our creation chat thread, click here. And, you know, we would make edits, and so we acknowledge that, but we always made a point of being transparent about our editing process. I'm going to do one thing quickly, which is to click on the link and show you what that looks like, and I'll also put it into the chat feed. Show of hands, how many of you have seen transcript links from either Gemini or from ChatGPT or from Copilot, where you've been using the sharing of transcript links? Here's an example I'm putting into the chat feed for you to see. But I see Chrissy raising your hand. Anybody else? Jeanette? So again, this is emerging. Not everybody knows that this exists. And this is why we wanted to at least begin with this idea that when we're using tools, including Pi, which Eve mentions in the chat feed, we want to encourage transparency and transparent teaching, transparent learning and teaching. So moving forward to our next slides, we're going to do a quick tour of 185 and provide some background. In terms of the course promotion, number one, after we taught our first class, we made sure to gather what faculty were saying, and we created an external landing page just to tell the story. And what we learned from our faculty in terms of their qualitative feedback, number one, that the course gave them new confidence using AI. Number two, that they felt like they recommended it to all of our faculty. And number three, it acknowledged their concerns and their interests. Both. We want to create a safe space for students, or excuse me, for faculty to share everything that's on their minds. And I think that's been really important in creating a safe space. So in terms of the course entrance, Josie, we'll start off with the landing page.
And I'm placing into the chat, Reed, the link for what you just shared, because it has a lot of fantastic resources in it. It is a Google site, and it's a site that Reed has created and curated over the years with a few others. And so we use D2L, Brightspace. And so this is the page that students, our participants, will see as soon as they enter the course. And we wanted it to be a space that immediately brought faculty into the concept of what we were, of AI. And so because at that time, and still today, there was so much information sharing every day, new articles coming out, we wanted to provide a Padlet that would offer any participants an opportunity to be able to interact and share and celebrate and bemoan and have all of the feelings and emotions in a shared, very informal kind of space. So that is immediately the first thing that participants will see. And then here, just a little warm welcome following evidence-based practices, a little bit of Meet Your Instructors, and then the Panopto is the video platform that we use synced with D2L.
And just for context, we didn't limit it to asynchronous teaching. We did meet with our folks every week. Josie, as you reflect back on those meetings, how important are they for this kind of experience?
They were essential because they were the place where we could really explore that metacognitive piece, or the meta. Like, let's get into the layers here of where we're exploring, we're analyzing, we're researching, we're understanding AI, generative AI, through a course that was largely created through AI, reflecting an experience a student may have. And so what is the feel of that? How is it working? There's comments in the chat about the concern about the human element missing. How does that come through? So those were kind of some of the questions that we engaged with in those live sessions. And so they were very also responsive to the questions, the topics, the discoveries that were coming about at that time.
Thank you, Josie. And one question I put into the chat feed for the room, if you have ideas to share with your peers, how are you sharing the ladest with AI within your spaces at your universities? Do you have any innovative things we should be doing at our institution? Josie showed previously our Padlet. We did regular meetings and gatherings within the actual course experience, and we'd love to know what you're doing. I'm going to continue on with some slides that tell this story. Going next to this image, Josie, what would you like to share about this slide?
Yeah, I think we can, this is just a little note from our announcements page. I think we can continue to the next one.
Okay.
The next slide. And here you'll see just a slide modeling AI at play. And this one's using the Zoom AI avatars. So anyone here, you're welcome to model this as well, or play with this as well by switching to a AI avatar. So just integrating AI in all sorts of different ways. And we even devoted one of our synchronous sessions to that component of play.
Thank you, Josie. And folks are posing some questions in the chat feed. We just want to make sure that we're responding. So Kimberly asks, did we do regular meetings in Zoom? And we would say yes. We did meetings at least once a week, and sometimes on demand when folks needed to do a deeper dive. All right, so moving forward, we have an image of just how we're modeling different types of AI exploration. I can keep going if that's okay with you, Josie. But we did use, I lost my voice one week, completely lost my voice. And so I trained 11 labs to speak my voice. And then I had it read a script for me. There's a lot of new AI tools that are emerging that are not just ChatGPT or Claude, et cetera.
So we've explored a little bit of the background, the context, the guiding questions, and the landing page. And now we are going to delve deep into the heart of this seminar, which is the course classroom. Reed will give us a little tour through that.
Wonderful. And I should note, as you continue to hear us speaking, please share comments in the chat feed. We did have one comment that I did not address before we begin, and we'll do more Q&A at the end. So if we forget something, please bring it back full circle if it hasn't yet been addressed. But for example, the question that Peter asked was, hey, when you feed your specs into GPT, how do you ensure that it's not going to reproduce it for others? It does ingest our data. If you want to have fully secure data experiences, you probably would want to use something like GPT Teams, which pledges to have privacy and security, and it has a price tag associated with it, I think at $25 a month right now. So continuing on, we have, Josie, our modular experience, where I've just taken a screenshot of the 4 modules and a Start Here folder. As we proceed, we start off with Start Here. And I will say this much, that the focus of where they're coming into the space is very architectural. You come into the room, what do you want folks to see? We give them a syllabus. It is an interactive syllabus that they can also open up in Google Docs in case they want to post questions in the chat feed. We give them a assessment approach that is also authored with the help of ChatGPT. We give them orientation slides that Josie created using an AI app, and we give them a resource share that they co-construct, where they share resources throughout the experience, not only among themselves, but with past and future participants in this cohort experience. Moving forward, you can see a sample module. This one's called AI Tools for Personalized Learning. And this is a typical week where we begin with a preview. We move towards a weekly supplement that is a Google document. We have a discussion about AI and some important question connected with it. Then they share an artifact, and everyone shares one artifact per week that addresses a student need. And we close with a weekly feedback loop. So it's a pretty simple structure where we focused most of our time on sharing resources, to be quite frank. They create resources, they share resources, they respond to each other's resources. You can see as a closer look for our first discussion in AI, we actually utilize ChatGPT to create the questions for us. So ChatGPT posed questions like, how can AI positively impact the sense of belonging and humanness? Very interesting question. And what are the potential risks of AI in education when considering these questions? So as we started out, we began by using AI heavily to help us shape the class and all aspects of it. And you'll notice at the bottom of this screen, it says, note, these prompts were initially created using ChatGPT in May of 2023. Here's the chat thread. So everything is hyper transparent. Whatever we're doing, everyone in the room can see the transcript link connected with what we did to create it, so that as it evolves, we continue to be transparent about our process. We show what we've changed and how. I want to shift here to the meta piece and Josie on metacognition.
So as Reed is showing, we made no attempts to hide the artifice of artificial intelligence, by creating many signposts and reminders throughout. And that was largely focused on or intended to spark awareness throughout the whole experience that this is an AI generated class with human components. And here's just one example of one of the metacognitive elements that we blended in. And this one, you probably won't be able to read it from the slide. And if you have great eyesight. This one says to reflect on your design, authorship, and labor. And in the spirit of promoting transparent AI practices, briefly reflect on your experience using AI, clarify your sharing authorship approach, and how many hours you spent designing, and please share your transcript link and refer to our TAP authorship guidelines. And so as the discussions emerge, there would be people who would post and they'd say, here's the response to this prompt that I got from ChatGPT. And so then we'd reflect on that. Well, what do you think? How can you, does it feel genuine? Does it feel true to what you would share? And how does that change your learning experience? So again, just integrating those layers throughout. We would also do this spontaneously. Like, for example, Reed and I would grade the responses in the grade book, and the comments that we included, we realized we are doing this different ways. And so my approach was to be fresh with my feedback, use my own human typing and all of that. And Reed had a great approach of using ChatGPT to create a template for responses and then filling it in with actual personalized individual feedback. And so we brought that to the surface and we asked, how does that change your experience as a student? How does it change to get a response that's mediated with ChatGPT versus one that's completely fresh?
Again, everything we did throughout was always modeling and trying to show how we're using AI in different ways or not using AI. Everything is a choice, and we want to engage our instructors in the choices we're making pedagogically as we move through. Here you can see an example of our weekly resource share. And again, it's just a screenshot here, but if you look closer underneath the table of contents, we have links shared for AI with science pedagogy, writing pedagogy, math education, nursing education, vet tech pedagogy. We wanted to make sure that there's a space for every discipline to be able to share AI-connected resources, readings, and links. And every week, as part of their discussion, they would add a couple of resources to this collaborative document. of what should we know and should we be sharing about AI as it relates to our teaching, as it relates to information literacy, as it relates to ethics. They own this document. Our job was to create the space so that they can share. As an example, we did scaffold it a little bit. So you'll see an example of the black text, which says AI in classroom management. This article at source presents insightful strategies on using AI to facilitate remote learning, specifically enhancing student engagement for streamlining administrative tasks, ... So I'm giving an example, and we try to model everything we do as we proceed. They did quite well with just a simple overview or an introduction. We also, as we close, ask them to not only revise something that they've created for sharing forward, but to share how they might share that forward. For example, whatever you did in our class, are you going to present it at a local conference like our Pima Online Educators Conference or our Teaching Strategies workshops, through our Teaching and Learning Center, or through global conferences? We encourage them to share either formally or informally, but to have a plan for sharing as part of the process. So we're going to pivot now to think about AI as a teachable moment with AI-generated content.
So as we progress through this initial training back in the late summer of 2023, we found that we couldn't just stay static with the plan that we originally created with generative AI. And this is another reason why those synchronous sessions were so valuable, because they helped us to discuss with the participants what's working, what's not. And we had discussions, asynchronous discussions of those same elements as well. And there were a couple of things that rose to the surface. And one of them, of course, were those phantom links, or the links that don't lead anywhere, that don't work. And one of our participants called those generative glitches, which I really like. I prefer over the hallucinogenic terminology. And so those are some of the changes that we wove throughout, integrating an open educational response as participants took more and more ownership of the content. So you'll see here we invited participants to create their own questions for what they would like to discuss, and then we integrated those in the course. And then we also did a similar approach with the curated readings.
Great. And so again, on this screen, Josie, we have examples, and then later slides will show how we change the actual prompts based upon feedback. We also have one other slide that's an example of something that we asked AI to create, which was a course audit template. Everything we did has a transcript link. So we're sharing our process for how we create every document.
And Reed has actually led sessions on auditing your course through the lens of AI. And it's been very helpful for a lot of our faculty in understanding, okay, there are some things I need to change to AI-proof my course.
And to piggyback off of what you just said, in terms of our course and the auditing, Pamela's asking, did we have a variety of teachers? Do we have STEM educators, multimedia, arts, theater? Yes, we had all of the above. We had film studies professors. We had writing professors, of course. So we had a huge range of faculty in every cohort. The last workshop that we did, there was a welding professor who came in feeling cynical about AI, and he finished our workshop saying, I want to join this course. It is open for everyone, and the goal is to do cross-disciplinary work across the curriculum, regardless of what your field is. So going to the next one, we also want to share a couple of points around how we model design practices. In D2L, you can use badges for virtual pats on the back. In other words, you can spend some time creating an image and saying, hey, great work being the first to audit content in this in your own course, or great work in being one of the first people to post something that shares how you communicate your expectations for students around AI. Whatever kinds of things that we're doing inside the space, we can create pat on the back badges, but it takes time. So of course, we use ChatGPT to create text that looks like this. And you'll see from the very bottom, we include the chat transcript that explains how we created these badges. And we actually let ChatGPT develop the text for these, and we had to ask multiple questions to sort of chisel it, but we wanted to always model even how we're generating the images. You'll notice that this image that has a magnifying glass and AI in it was created using an AI tool, and we just have made a point to always model our practice as we move through. So next, we're going to pivot towards course iterations and how we revise based upon the feedback of all of our participants in the course. Here's an example that Josie will walk through of what we started with.
Or what AI started with. And it's just a simple introduction, briefly introduce yourself, etc. Reply to 2 peers. In the brackets, that is, I believe Reed added that in for something that to bring into our synchronous, that's human generated. And then reply to your self-introduction, addressing either of these AI generated prompts. How can AI positively impact the sense of belonging and humanness in education? What are the potential risks of AI in education when considering belonging and humanness? And then after addressing, reflect on quality of these prompts and share what you feel might be better prompts for future cohorts during their first week. After these posts in D2L, open our AI resource share Google Doc, so collaboratively created Google Doc, and use the guidelines provided there to contribute at least 2 new resources, text or video, connected with your inquiry and design this week. And you'll see the little transparency note at the bottom. These prompts were initially created using ChatGPT-4 in May 2023. Chat thread, they were further trimmed in February to limit overlap with future topical prompts. Here we have another example. How can I use AI as a tool to support and enhance student learning rather than students using it to take the place of learning? And you see that.
I redacted the names just as a context, but we shifted away from using AI prompts to using prompts from our participants here. I just want to make sure that you knew that the names are removed.
So what we've replaced them with cohorts. So our cohort 1, which was in the summer, and then cohort 2 in the fall, etc.
So beyond the classroom, in terms of our expectations for participants, we wanted folks to share. And again, it's a gentle nudge, but it's a part of our course design. And we have an example here where we engaged, I guess it was 9 different panel members in different open discussions on AI at our all faculty day, which also included student presence, where our participants invited their students in the first workshop to join us as part of those workshops. So let's shift towards beyond the course and how we approach resource sharing. And actually, I can do this one. So in terms of how we set clear expectations for our students, we have a page, and we can put it into the chat feed as well, just on AI, called onlinefaculty.pima.edu/AI, that includes resources, Google Documents, suggested things that are emerging nationally. Here I have Lance Eden's long list of the many syllabi policies across the country. I link to Harvard's AI project. I share the 3 recommended practices from our own TLC, and I share other resources. But we felt like we don't want all of our resources just to be behind a course wall, if you will. We wanted those to be publicly available and visible so that anyone who is interested in the class can still see these resources, whether they take the course or not. Another piece to share is that as we proceed, we would, again, promote opportunities to be on panels. We would promote opportunities to share their resources, not just within an internal capstone and share, but in the larger community within our college. Let's pivot to lessons learned, Josie.
All right, so we're kind of winding down here towards the end of our tour. And if we want to move forward, we'll talk a little bit about some of the takeaways, the lessons learned that we had based on our experience facilitating this course, and also that were shared by the participants. Number 1 is to play with AI. We're very much proponents of playing with teaching and learning in general and the value of play as a pedagogical activity. And so one of the best ways, of course, to learn is through that creative flow of play. We had fun playing with images, and we encouraged faculty and staff taking the course to play throughout. AI communication plans, huge priority, need-based AI exploration with student and faculty, keeping the focus on the needs, AI course audits, AI retrofits, continuous improvement. And then a huge takeaway is AI detection is flawed. We know that AI is flawed. And of course, drawing attention to the artifice to emphasize and amplify the humanness, I would say, is one of our major takeaways as well. Reed, is there anything that you'd like to say about the AI communication plans or the need-based AI exploration?
100%. I think we've somehow didn't keep item 7, which is AI and humanness, which is a huge item for us. In terms of the communication plan, one of the things that we've emphasized, even in workshops outside of the course, is that regardless of your philosophy, you need to communicate with your students about what you believe about AI so that they have fair expectations. So they don't suddenly feel the sting of an F for doing something that they didn't know was not okay. So communicating your expectations within your syllabus and during the first week, regardless of what modality you're in, is super important, just to set clear expectations around use, even if you don't know these tools yet. We have had faculty in our course, as Josie was mentioning, who started off being totally opposed to any use of AI by students, who did a 180 by the end of the class. But all the same, at the start of the semester, they had a very clear policy for their students on what was allowable within the class. And that will change from class to class with you, but just having clear communication is key. The other piece is, as we play with AI, and we do play broadly, especially in our video chats, we'll just do live demos of ridiculous things and have a good time. We focus the weekly artifact on what is the student need you're addressing first. Sometimes, yes, faculty will just focus on, okay, well, what's going to save them time? And so they'll develop tools that save them time. But we want to try to bring our attention back to what do our students need cognitively as it relates to the specific activity that you're trying to rewrite. If you're trying to make something AI proof, it's a difficult task because AI can be engaged in a lot of things. But if you're trying to make it more AI resilient so that students can positively use AI to dig deeper rather than to do shallow learning, what are the kinds of needs that you're wanting to build into that learning activity? What needs are you addressing that students need? And it might be the ability to read really difficult, dry text for a specific discipline. Whatever that need is, our faculty began with that. And then they used ChatGPT to explore how AI might help in that process, either as a support, like an AI assistant, as an AI support for doing reading, as an AI support for helping break the blank page and do better writing. So those are the two pieces that I wanted to say, Josie, would be starting with the need as number 1 and communicate your expectations for students, number 2. If nothing else, those are the two most important things, I think.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking back too, if we would have faculty and we would, as we went through and offered comments on their work that didn't call attention, it was pretty clear that what they submitted was AI, but there was no source, citation, explanation, or reflection of that. And so it was a process of guiding faculty into understanding that the expectations applied to them as well, and that so that they could understand, that they could embrace the concept that is what they would want to from their students in the classroom, is just that open transparency with those expectations. I'll say too that on a logistical level, a lot of the assessments that we received were very lengthy. And so, for example, when we'd read through the chat scripts, it would be a really long document to look through. And at some points, it was very difficult to organize, get a clear organizational sense of what was AI generated and what was participant generated. So that's just a logistical level in terms of moving through the assessments. And I see we're about right on time. We have about 10 minutes left.
And we've got some questions that I think we might pose to the room, and you can pose questions to us as well. But like, for example, items 4 and number 5, I'm curious to see how many of you in the room have used AI to hack a learning activity. Pretend you're a student and go in and look at one of the activities inside your course or assessments, whatever you'd like to call it, to see how students might use AI in positive or negative ways to complete the assignment. That's a more advanced piece, but our students start doing that in this course. And then they have to think, okay, how can I reshape this learning experience to be less susceptible to the misuse of AI? And it's a tricky question, and it depends on the discipline. So I just want to see from the room, have you tried going in and using AI to complete any existing assignments in your course experiences? And I'm going to unshare my screen for this because I want to see what folks are saying.
Reed, before we did you address Peter? Peter had the question, does feeding your course specs into ChatGPT ensure they are forever available in any other results ChatGPT may produce for others?
It's a great technical question, and I see Stephanie in the room who probably can answer that question as well. It's a question that we do know that ChatGPT Teams, which is the level above GPT-4, provides and ensures security and privacy. That's $25 a month. Most of our faculty are not going to pay for that. I pay $20 a month. We went into this knowing that ChatGPT could potentially ingest this data, and as it flattens it, potentially reproduce or share what we've shared forward. That's part of playing with these tools, is that it doesn't commit to not ingesting your data. I think the best free tool for that right now is Claude. And even Claude isn't perfect with that. So that's just something you need to be aware of. If you really want data privacy and security, Copilot, I think, also has new options now that it's emerged. And if anyone in the room has been using Copilot closely, we'd love to hear from you.
So Peter clarified, no, I'm a bit afraid of how the info might be used. And I want to comment on how we brought that into the course as well, by always making clear that we're not just going to scrape our participants' information and put it into the tool without their permission, agency, and emphasizing the value, the need to respect and honor students as agency was central throughout this training. That doesn't directly address your question, Peter, but it did come up when you wrote that. So afraid of how the info might be used.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT creating this course and how that might be used in that prompt experience. Is that the question? And feel free to unmute if that would help.
He did respond as a yes on that. And I
Okay.
think that's a fair question. This is, again, why whenever we're considering using any student data, we would ask for full permission from students, acknowledging their data sovereignty, their sense of choice around whether their information would be ever added to AI within any sort of, like, we did one thing, Josie, you remember this, where we did a Zoom chat feed. We were going to let Zoom summarize all of the cool ideas that came through, but we wanted to get permission from our course participants before we uploaded it into Zoom, because we didn't want to do anything without their support.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to observe that we're losing that agency, and sometimes that's just automatically enabled and Zoom's doing that. And so it's so important to just pay attention and be aware of what is happening to agency. I see Lindsay has a comment. Yes, a faculty and I did this for a coding assignment, and the instructor was shocked at the learning opportunities it offered. Discovery of new libraries, potentially more efficient code, etc. We'd redefine the assignment as a reflection, i.e. write your code and then compare it to AI generated code. So that's in response to hack a learning activity. That's fantastic.
I don't know if you all have coding professors at your school, but a lot of our students are using AI tools to do coding. And within GitHub, Copilot is a heavily used tool by coders now, and so it's becoming a different question, which is how will our students be expected to use AI in the workplace? Not just how might they misuse AI within our courses, but rather framing our question around how do we prepare our students so they can use AI in the next step for their college and career. It's a very different question.
Eva had a great comment about bias and that concern about where Chat GPT and other tools are pulling their information from, and how there has been bias found in AI tools in ongoingly. So if we or anyone intentionally pulls it into a generative AI tool, how will that change the bias? Excellent question.
And if you're interested in this, digging deeper into this question, Google algorithmic bias, Google just AI and bias, and you'll see lots of information about the problematics of what kinds of imagery are connected with AI image creation, bias within texts, but it does reproduce the bias of the web. I will note that Claude is a constitutional AI, so it pledges that it will filter its content so that it does not generate anything that goes against the, I believe, the United Nations, some of the United Nations language. But in general, it's hard to know from our position, you know, you can train your AI. You can go in and create a custom guidance point that asks them to play the role of an expert who is informed about X, Y, and Z. You could do that right now within ChatGPT, or you can do it within every single prompt. You can even build your own GPTs where you train basically OpenAI's ChatGPT 4 to speak to you from an informed position that may be less likely to reproduce those biases. But we've seen, if folks are using tools like Consensus or ChatGPT to create an annotated bibliography, certain authors are going to be included and excluded. Certain images are going to be reproduced and not reproduced, relating to race, class, gender, beauty, and other kinds of cultural norms that are reproduced within these tools.
Affordability. Pamela notes that people with better resources will have better access to AI. At Pima Community College, we're leading an AI task force and developing guiding principles. And so that those components of accessibility, affordability, those are all guiding principles we have for decisions related to AI.
So Stephanie at the University of Arizona notes that you can actually upload your own documents and train the GPT to focus on the documents that you upload from the internet. And it does a pretty good job of that. So again, you can upload a PDF and train it around that PDF. But just keep in mind that there are some risks associated with that, because hackers have been able to reverse upload whatever has been uploaded into a GPT. And then, so if you're put one of your books inside a GPT, that can be kind of hacked. It's not a perfect tool by any means, but it's exciting as a place to play with the possible.
We have about 2 more minutes. Are there any final questions, comments, concerns, answers?
I think some of the sticky questions that we hope you'll all hold on to would include, how do we reshape a course to make it less susceptible to the misuse of AI? It's a really difficult question to consider, as it's different for every discipline. And I would encourage you to hold on to that question and to push the limits, because we have seen, and we saw this even in March of 2023, faculty reverting to blue books and invasive home proctoring solutions, as if that's a good strategy. Folks want to keep teaching the same content the way they've always taught it, so they're resorting to doing more proctoring. And that's a understandable shift. It's just really unfortunate. It takes time to reshape curriculum, to work with your instructional designers to do so. But it's an important thing to keep in mind. Can you set up a space to work with other colleagues to rethink each assignment and chunk it into smaller learning pieces that involve more metacognition, to chunk it into pieces where there might be social annotation, where they're sort of accountable to the text that they're reading in small groups, that are, having them present with video. Our coding professors at our college are presenting using video so that they know that the students know the content when they're presenting. There's all kinds of ways to rethink, but we just have to think together in every discipline a little bit differently.
My final note would be to keep asking questions, thinking critically, promoting agency and humanness, maintaining that critical awareness and thought process of the bias. How is this impacting humanity? And even as things change, and it don't necessarily change in ways we would like or agree with, they are changing. And so the more that we pay attention, the more agency we'll have together.
So moving forward, I think we're almost at time. We're at 2:45, Kevin, but we do want to stay in touch with you. So please feel free to reach out, and we'll continue these conversations with you. They do go far beyond our 45-minute chat today.
Can I ask one last question? I know I've been really chatty here. So my question is, it feels like AI is really, really, really being pushed by corporate America, and that just makes me nervous. Because that means more or fewer people at the top are going to start determining the information that's allowed out there. What gets processed, what doesn't. I know that's a whole big theory of concern, but it just, from my point of view, and I'm a person who loves hand drawing, hand painting, hand animating, all that stuff. I am really nervous about this push towards it in all our classrooms, and I'm like thinking, is there a money package that's going along that's being offered to teachers? I mean, not teachers, colleges, to promote this, because that's what it feels like.
I can understand, and it reflects what we've seen before with the internet, for example. And all I can say is that that would be a wonderful question to discuss with students, just to encourage them to critically think about it and have that awareness of what is happening. Other than that, what about you, Reed?
I mean, it's
certainly
messy.
a concern. Is the undemocratizing of a resource.
I think it's something we need to hold space for. It's a very important and valid comment to think about how power consolidates and who's controlling the AI that's moving forward. I don't know that there's a simple answer, except that I do know that we're seeing AI emerging in every tool, and every tool that's an ed tech tool wants to call itself an AI tool. So the urgency of literacy is very important. I did share in the chat feed a talk that I did with our arts department head, where we talked about the problem of AI in art and the opportunities as well for educators. And we went into all the messy questions. I think we need to hold on to those messy questions and keep pursuing them, again, with this mindset of empowering our students to be able to navigate a world that is increasingly filled with AI, best case and worst case scenarios included.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Milliken, Reed, for leading obviously a very interactive and thought-provoking session. And so we'll consider this. We've been able to peruse the buffet, but we still have plenty of work to do to sample the different items. So I'm going to stop the recording in just a moment, but for those of you who are in time zones where it's conducive, know that we have another session in just another 10 minutes with Adrienne Oliver, and we're excited to have her talk about inclusive teaching. And so, but let's all take a moment to thank Dr. Milliken and Reed for this session about AI, and we hope to see you all in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Kevin, for having us with you.